Hello, library friends. My name is Miss Liz. This is Book Briefs, and today our book is The Witch's Heart by Genevieve Gornichek, which is a retelling of the Norse mythology myth about Loki and his wife, Angerboda. As a disclaimer before I start this book briefs, I am not going to say any of these names correctly. I've tried to pronounce the names of Norse mythology. My tongue cannot wrap around the syllables, so I apologize in advance. But this is a story of Loki and his wife, Angerboda. And Angerboda is a witch, and when she refuses to prophesy for Odin, he punishes her, and she escapes to the forest to... As a disclaimer before I start this book briefs, I'm not going to say any of the names correctly. I apologize. I can't make those sounds with my mouth in the right order. It doesn't work. But this is a retelling of the Norse mythology myth of Loki and his wife, Angerboda. Angerboda is a witch. She is punished by Odin for not prophesying the future for him, and she escapes deep into the woods where she meets Loki. They fall in love, they have children, but in traditional Norse mythology tellings, the children are considered monsters. You've got Fenrir, the Midgard serpent, and Hel, who are, if you know Norse mythology, they're kind of connected with the end of the world, so they're not viewed very kindly. But this is a story from their mother's perspective and how she's... As a disclaimer before I start this book briefs, I'm not going to get all the names right. Norse mythology's names are very difficult for me to pronounce. I've tried a lot, and it's just not working out. But this is the story of Angerboda and Loki. As a disclaimer before I start this book briefs, I'm going to mispronounce things. I tried to get the correct pronunciation, and I struggled. I couldn't get it right. Norse names are incredibly difficult for me to say. So this is the story. As a disclaimer before I start this book briefs, I'm not going to say the names correctly. I've tried. But there's going to be mispronunciation of names without warning. This is the story of Angerboda, who is a witch who tells the future. As a disclaimer before I start this book briefs, I'm not going to get all the names right. I'm pretty sure I'm not saying the main character's name right. Norse mythology names are very difficult for me to say. They've got a lot of strange syllables in them that I don't think my mouth makes. As a disclaimer before I start this book briefs, I'm going to say the names wrong. I've tried to look up the correct pronunciations, but I can't get them right, so we're just going to dive into it with me saying things wrong, and I apologize. But I really want to tell you guys about this book because it is a retelling of the Norse mythology story of Loki and his wife Angerboda. And they have 3 children, who you may have heard of: Hel, the Midgard serpent, and Fenrir. Now, all 3 of these kids are not known to be really great people. They're kind of all connected with the end of the world, Ragnarok. So this story is a look at their story from their mother's perspective, and their mother is trying to change their fate. She's trying to fight against what has been predetermined for herself and her family. So it is an interesting take on an old myth. If you guys enjoy retelling of myths, you should definitely check this out if you enjoyed Rick. As a disclaimer before I start this book briefs, I'm going to say names wrong. I have tried to get all the name pronunciations correct, but I don't think I have it. It's Norse mythology names are just incredibly difficult. But this is the story of Loki and his wife Angerboda. And they have 3 children. Their 3 children are Fenrir, the Midgard serpent, and Hel. And if you know anything about Norse mythology, those are 3 characters who are not usually looked on in a good light. They're kind of associated with Ragnarok and the end of the world. So kind of the villains in Norse mythology. But this takes a look at their story from their mother's perspective. And she has prophetic visions, and she tries to change the fate of her children. Her fate... As a disclaimer before I get into this book briefs, I'm going to say names wrong. I've tried really hard to get the correct pronunciation. As a disclaimer before I get into this book briefs, I'm going to say names wrong. I have tried really hard to get the correct pronunciations for these Nordic mythology names, but I can't. I can't say some of the names correctly, so I apologize in advance. I'm doing my best because I really wanted to talk about this book with you guys because it is a retelling of the Norse mythology myth between Loki and his wife, Angrboda, and their children, who are Fenrir, the Midgard serpent, and Hel. And if you know anything about Norse mythology, these are usually viewed as monsters. They're kind of connected to the end of the world, and Loki is kind of a in the middle, maybe a bad character, maybe a good character, depending on what's going on and what story you're reading. And Angrboda is usually not cast as a hero either. But in this book, it is a story told from her perspective, and she is trying to change the fate of her children because she has prophetic visions, and she wants to change how things are going to go. She's going to fight against fate. She's going to fight against the gods. And if you're interested in retellings of mythology, you should definitely check this one out. If you're interested in Norse mythology, also definitely give this one a check out. It's available at your local library. You just put it on hold, give us a call. You can also do it online. As a disclaimer, I haven't read this book. The information I'm giving you in book briefs is just from summaries I have read about the book, reviews I have read about the book, and the information put out about the book by the publisher.